Wren stood alone on the silver platform, her hands shaking at her sides. All around her, the grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with blue and gold lights. Beings from 100 different worlds filled the high seats, watching her. Some had no eyes, but they still stared. Some had no mouths, but they still laughed. They were the strongest, oldest, and richest civilizations in the galaxy. They called themselves the Galactic Elite. And today, they had invited Earth. Earth, a young planet. Poor. Dirty. Wild. A place known only for its wars and noise. Most of the elite thought this was a mistake. Some even believed Earth was a joke. So when they saw Kara, a young girl, small and quiet, they burst into laughter. "Is this your leader?" one delegate shouted, pointing at her. Another flicked a tentacle and sneered. "She doesn't even wear armor. What is that on her back?" "A drawing." Kara didn't answer. She stood straight, though her heart beat fast in her chest. Her black shirt left her back uncovered, by design. A tattoo ran from the base of her neck down to her spine. Thin lines, like roots, spread out from a glowing mark in the center. The mark was blue. Not bright. Just soft, like a star behind a cloud. No one knew where the tattoo came from. Kara had woken up with it at age 12, after a fire destroyed her village. She was the only survivor. The medics couldn't explain it. No ink. No burn. No technology. Just a symbol. Some scientists thought it was alien. Others believed it was ancient Earth magic. Kara never gave an answer. She simply lived. Trained. Waited. Now, at 22, she stood in front of the most powerful beings in the universe. And they all hated her. The lead speaker, a tall, glass-like being named Veltrax, spoke in a calm, cold voice. "Earth is not ready for council status. We accepted your petition only as a formality. But this," he motioned to Kara, "this is an insult." Kara looked up. Her eyes were calm. Her mouth stayed closed. Veltrax continued. "You were told to send a leader. A general. A scientist. You sent this child." Soft laughter spread through the room again. And then it happened. The mark on Kara's back pulsed just once. A sound filled the hall. Low, deep, and not human. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a song. It was something else. It was a voice. Not Kara's. But it came from her. The entire room went still. Even Veltrax stopped speaking. The voice echoed again, louder. "I am Earth." The lights in the grand hall flickered. The holograms on the walls shook. Even the gravity shifted for a second. Kara didn't speak. Her mouth stayed closed. But the tattoo on her back glowed brighter now. Lines of light flowed across the floor, reaching every corner of the room. Images appeared in the air, clear, real, living images. A baby's first cry. A woman planting seeds in the dirt. Men building fires in caves. Great towers rising into the sky. War. Destruction. Peace. Laughter. The council watched in silence. Then came an image of Kara as a child, kneeling in the ashes of her home. Tears on her face. Her hand glowing as the mark burned into her skin. "She is my voice," the earth said. "You asked for a leader. I sent my soul." Some delegates gasped. One fainted. Another dropped to their knees. Even Veltrax stepped back. This was no joke. This was no child. This was Earth itself speaking. And Earth was not weak. Kara finally looked up, her eyes glowing faintly blue. Her voice, still quiet, still human, spoke just 5 words. "You will hear us now." The hall was silent. Every delegate, no matter their rank or power, sat frozen. Kara's last words echoed in the air. You will hear us now. No one laughed anymore. Even Veltrax, proud speaker of the council, stood still, his hands behind his back. His body, made of living crystal, pulsed with soft red light. That meant fear. Kara's tattoo glowed brighter. Lines of light stretched up her neck and across her arms. But she didn't move. She didn't attack. She just stood in the center of the platform, waiting. The Earth's voice spoke again. For years, you watched us. Judged us. You saw only the fire, never the spark. You saw war, but not love. You saw death, but not birth. You called us savage. But we were growing. Another wave of images appeared in the air. A blind child playing music. A father giving his last breath to save his son. A woman holding hands with a robot. Soldiers choosing peace. Doctors working through the night. Old hands planting trees they would never see grow. Tears ran down the cheeks of one delegate, a soft, jelly-like being from the planet Ur. He wiped them away, ashamed. Kara spoke, this time with her own voice. My people made mistakes. We've hurt each other. We've hurt our world. But we learn. We rise. We survive. A long, thin alien floated forward from the back. His name was Dren Varlo, a scholar from the planet Canax. He tilted his head and spoke softly. But why you? Why did Earth choose you to speak? Kara turned to him. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just answered. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want it. But when I lost everything, the Earth reached out. It gave me this mark. It gave me its voice. She turned around, showing the full tattoo. Now it shimmered with patterns. Waves. Mountains. Trees. Stars. I carry the stories of my people. Not because I'm the best, but because I survived. Because I listened. A heavy voice came from the far left of the chamber. It belonged to Krull of the Dreth Empire, huge, armored, feared by all. He stood up. The Dreth respect strength, he growled. But this is not strength. It is memory. Feeling. Kara looked straight at him. Then you understand nothing, she said. Real strength is not how many enemies you kill. Real strength is how much pain you carry without letting it turn you into a monster. The hall went quiet again. Krull sat down. Slowly. Even he had no answer. Then the Earth spoke one last time. We do not ask for pity. We do not beg for power. We offer truth. And a voice. Let it be heard. The light faded. The tattoo dimmed. The images vanished. Kara stood alone once more. But everything had changed. The delegates turned to each other, whispering. Some nodded. Some looked down. Others just stared. Veltrax raised his hand. The council will decide. You may return to your quarters. Kara gave a small bow, turned, and walked away. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just calm. As she passed the doors, one by one, the guards stepped aside not out of duty, but out of respect. Back in her chamber, Kara sat by the window. Below her, stars moved like rivers of light. Somewhere down there, Earth spun quietly. She touched the tattoo on her back. It no longer glowed, but she could still feel it warm, steady, alive. A voice whispered in her mind. Not loud. Not commanding. Just gentle. You did well. Kara nodded. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Kara didn't sleep that night. She sat by the white glass wall, watching stars drift past the space station. Behind her, the walls hummed softly. Machines kept the air warm and clean. It was peaceful. Too peaceful. Back on Earth, The nights were never quiet. There were always insects. Wind. Dogs barking. Distant voices. Here, it felt like space was holding its breath. Kara's back still felt warm where the tattoo had glowed. But now, it was quiet. The earth had gone still again. She didn't know what the council would decide. They had seen what Earth really was. Felt its voice. But that didn't mean they would accept her. The Galactic Elite didn't like being surprised. They didn't like being shown they were wrong. Kara knew that much. The next morning, the council called her back. This time, the chamber was quieter. No laughter. No mocking. Just stillness. The delegates sat in their high seats. Many of them looked different. Some had changed colors. Others had changed shapes. It was a sign of deep thought and discomfort. Veltrax stood in the center again. He looked straight at Kara, but this time his voice held no pride. After long debate, the council has reached a decision. Kara stood tall. She didn't speak. Veltrax continued. Earth is accepted. By narrow vote. You now hold observer status in the council. A few gasps filled the room. Observer status wasn't full membership. But it was close. No other new planet had earned it in the last 300 years. Kara felt a weight lift from her chest. But she didn't smile. Not yet. Veltrax raised a hand. There is one condition. Kara tilted her head. What is it? The crystal being paused for a moment. Then he said, we ask that you remain. Not as a visitor. But as Earth's permanent voice. Kara blinked. Me. Veltrax nodded. You carry the Earth's presence. You are, more than just human. Some of the other delegates nodded. Even Krull of the Dreth gave a small grunt of approval. Kara thought for a long moment. She had never wanted power. Never wanted a seat at a high table. All she ever wanted was to survive. To honor the people she had lost. But now, she had a choice. And Earth was still watching. She spoke clearly. If I stay, I don't follow your rules. I don't wear your symbols. I don't bow. Veltrax's glass body shimmered. You speak boldly. I speak for Earth, Kara said. And Earth doesn't kneel. The chamber went silent again. Then Veltrax did something no one expected. He gave a slow, respectful bow. So be it. Later, as Kara walked through the station, she passed groups of aliens who had once mocked her. Now, they stepped aside. Not in fear but in recognition. One small creature, no taller than her knee, reached out with a flower made of light. Kara paused, knelt down, and took it gently. Thank you, she said. The creature smiled and ran off. Kara's quarters were moved to the upper ring closer to the council floor. From her new window, she could see Earth more clearly, spinning in the dark. She placed the glowing flower in a dish of water and sat beside it. The tattoo pulsed once soft, steady. And the voice returned. They listened. Kara whispered, yes. They did. Then we begin. Earth had a voice now. And the galaxy would never forget it. Days passed. Then weeks. Kara stayed on the station, now known by all as the voice of Earth. Delegates who once mocked her now asked for her opinion. Scientists requested scans of her tattoo, hoping to understand it. Some called it a biological miracle. Others believed it was a living message. But no one could explain it. Not even Kara. She only knew one thing, the Earth chose her. And it hadn't finished speaking. Late one night, she was called to a private council meeting. Only 5 delegates were present. These were not the loud ones. Not the proud ones. These were the real power, the inner circle. Veltrax was among them. So was Krull of the Dreth, and Dren Varlo, the scholar who had once asked her, "Why you?" Now, it seemed they had a different question. Veltrax spoke first. "There is a threat." Kara stayed quiet. She had learned that silence made them nervous, and nervous leaders told the truth faster. Dranvarlo explained. "Something is waking on the edge of the galaxy. Something old. Older than this council. Older than Earth." He tapped the table, and a star map appeared. It showed a black region void of light, energy, or time. Kara frowned. "That's the dead zone. You said it was lifeless." Krull growled. "We were wrong." Another delegate, made of shifting wind and whispers, added, "The darkness moves. And it feeds." Kara stood up slowly. "Why tell me this?" Veltrax looked at her, for once with no arrogance. "Because Earth spoke through you. And what speaks, may also listen." That night, Kara stood before the large viewing glass in her quarters. Earth glowed in the distance, small but steady. She placed her hand on the tattoo. It warmed beneath her skin. "There's something coming," she whispered. "Do you know it?" There was silence. Then, the voice returned. "Yes." Kara's breath caught in her throat. "What is it?" "An old hunger. A forgotten war. They erased the memory, but not the danger." Kara sat down, shaken. "Why me?" she asked again, not to the council, but to the Earth itself. The answer came softly. "Because you are not afraid to feel pain. And still choose to speak." The next morning, the council announced a new mission. A ship would travel toward the edge of the dead zone. A crew of diplomats, scientists, warriors, and Kara. They asked her to stay behind. She refused. "If something is waking," she said, "it needs to hear Earth's voice again." No one argued. The ship was called the Dawn Carrier. It launched with little ceremony. Kara stood at the bridge, watching stars stretch into lines as they jumped into deep space. Each day, the crew grew more nervous. Strange readings. Dead signals. Empty worlds. The tattoo on Kara's back grew warmer the closer they came. Then, one night, it burned. Kara fell to the floor. Her eyes glowed bright blue. The voice returned not to her alone but out loud. "It is near." The ship slowed. In front of them was a shadow, not just a lack of light. It swallowed sensors, waves, even thoughts. A whisper came from the dark, not in words, but in hunger. Kara stepped forward. She opened her mouth. And Earth spoke again. "You took from us before. You thought we forgot. But we remember." The shadow pulled back. For the first time, the crew saw something inside. Not a ship. Not a planet. A wound in space. Something had been sealed there. Something Earth had fought before. Kara's eyes filled with tears. Not fear. Memory. "You fought this already," she said. "And you lost people." The voice inside her answered. "Yes. And we buried them in fire and silence." The wound pulsed. The darkness began to spread. Kara stood at the edge of the viewing glass. And she didn't run. She whispered only two words. "We're ready." The shadow stretched across space like a giant wound. It swallowed light. It swallowed sound. And now, it was reaching for them. Inside the Dawn Carrier, alarms screamed. The crew moved fast, activating shields and scanners. But the readings made no sense. There were no ships. No weapons. Just darkness. And a strange pressure, like something ancient was watching. Kara stood at the front of the command deck, her hands gripping the rail. The tattoo on her back pulsed hard, glowing through her skin. She wasn't scared. She felt something deeper, recognition. The Earth inside her whispered. "It has no name. Only hunger." We faced it once. We sealed it. But time made the seal weak. A scientist beside her asked, "Can we fight it?" Kara didn't answer. The Earth did. You don't fight a wound. You heal it. The captain of the ship, a tall, green-skinned woman named Ray, stepped beside Kara. "We have weapons," Ray said. "We can hold it back." Kara shook her head. "No. This isn't a war. Not yet. If we attack first, it wakes fully." She turned to the crew. "We have one chance. Let me speak to it. Not with power, but with memory." Ray stared at her for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Go." Kara walked into the central chamber of the ship. A round room with no controls. Just glass. Light. Space. She sat cross-legged in the center. She closed her eyes. And let the earth rise through her. The tattoo lit up, brighter than ever. Lines of light flowed from her spine across the floor, into the walls, through the ship. The dawn carrier began to glow. Then, silence. In the black space beyond, the darkness paused. It felt her. And she felt it. Not a voice. Not thoughts. But pain. Endless. Ancient. This thing had been left behind. Forgotten. Buried. Alone. Kara whispered, "We remember you." A low hum echoed across space. The wound pulsed once. Then images filled the air around her. A war. Long ago. Before Earth had cities. Before Earth had names. A galaxy burning. The creature once light had been used as a weapon. It was twisted. Ripped open. Its heart shattered. Not evil. Just broken. And when the war ended, it had been sealed away, and abandoned. Kara's voice cracked. "You were hurt. You became the pain. But that isn't all you are." She stood slowly. Light from her tattoo wrapped around her like armor. Not hard metal, just glowing threads, like roots, like veins. She reached out her hand toward the blackness. "Let me show you what Earth became. After the fire. After the war." More images filled the ship. A child planting a tree in soil. A woman dancing in the rain. A city rebuilt after a storm. A man holding another man's hand. Laughter. Music. Forgiveness. The creature, whatever it was, watched. And then, it answered. Not with words. But with silence. A silence that was peace, not pain. The shadow began to pull back. Slowly. Softly. Like a wound closing. Kara fell to her knees. Exhausted. Tears ran down her face. The tattoo dimmed. Captain Ray caught her before she collapsed. "It's retreating," Ray whispered. "You did it?" Kara shook her head, smiling weakly. "We did." The crew cheered. But not loudly. Not wildly. They all understood what had just happened. Not a victory. Not a battle. A moment of truth. And healing. Later, back in her room, Kara sat alone again. She touched her back. "Why me?" she whispered once more. The Earth's voice answered one final time that night. "Because you didn't fight to destroy. You spoke to understand." That day, Earth earned not just a place on the council, but a place in the galaxy's memory. And Kara Wren, the girl no one believed in, became the one they all turned to when the stars whispered of pain.